right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I am really excited about today's video. Not on the water, but I want to talk about, if you guys have followed the channel for a while, I know the channel's really grown a ton in the past few months, but I have been a guide in Western North Carolina for over a decade. And at my tackle store that I had, we had a tackle store, boat service center, marine electronics installations, guide business, kind of the whole shebang. But if you spend any time in the shop or spend any time watching the channel, you know that I am a hardcore Daiwa fan. And there's some reasons for that, and I can go over them right now. One of them is that they have all metal interior gearing. You take apart their reels and it's all metal gears that are working together in there. I mean, I tell people, when you click the button to disengage the reel and you re-engage the reel, you hear a distinct ting ting. It sounds like metal on metal. I compare it to, pulling back a SIG or something with a 9mm. It's just the strongest, hardiest, metal on metal. Man, this is a strong geared system. And immediately when I think about that, I think about longevity. As a guide, being on the water 250 to 300 days a year, I need reels that are long lasting, that are durable, that are strong. And to me, Daiwas were really that product. The other thing was the technology per price point. When I was getting into the guiding scene, I had a lot of companies approach me and say, hey, we understand the business model of you are on the water with people, the equipment that they catch fish with, they're gonna trust and use and buy. And I used a lot of rods and reel companies. I used Abu Garcia in college, and I would wear the gears out of that stuff, lose. I'd found them really good for a few months, and then they would just not be as clean and great. But my Daiwa reels, just day in, day out, were just superior products. Honestly, they just had longevity. And then that technology for price point, they have the T-wing system. So when I disengage the reel, there's this T that comes out on the level wind, and that allows less friction, so you get more castability, better spool control, line control. And then they have the SV spool, and what that SV spool is essentially, when you look at a lot of reel spools, they have holes in them, and that allows air. Well, how the ABS, the air brake system works, it works like a Jake brake. I've got two diesel trucks behind me, and they both have Jake brakes, and essentially that's compression, air compression. So what the spool does is, because there's no holes in that SV spool, it compresses the air. So when you're casting a bait out there, it prevents backlashes. So I always tell people, if you are wanting a reel that doesn't backlash or just has better line and spool control, you need to go with a Daiwa SV reel, whether that's a Tatula. I have an all Zillion lineup now, and I'm gonna go over why. Yeah, and by the way, everything I talk about today, links down in the description, all the rods and reels I'm gonna be talking about. So when I talk about technology per price point, you start looking at the technology you get with the Daiwas is really top of the line with their air brake system, the T-wing, all that things, and their price point is way less than competing brands. And honestly, I would say there's only two competing premium reel brands. It's Shimano and it's Daiwa. And when I was looking at Daiwa as a store owner, I was like, holy cow, they are able to provide a better, superior technological product at a lower price. Or you could argue, a lot of people like the digital, the DCs, but when you look at the price point for the technology in the Daiwa was lesser than that of a Shimano. And then honestly, just straight up being honest with you, as a store owner, the margins were better. I made more money on Daiwa products than I did Shimano. Shimano was brutal pricing, and we just couldn't survive on those kind of margins, and I just really like Daiwa. We still sold Shimanos when people would order them. We could direct order them and so forth if people wanted them, but our bread and butter was the Daiwas. But anyways, I'm a Daiwa guy. I've been Daiwa through and through. The guys over there, I work with them, the national sales managers, the regional sales managers, some of the pros, everything, content creation across the board, whatever. But I love the Daiwa products, and I'm using an all Zillion setup, across the board on what I would say are my bread and butter techniques. So the first setup I have is a 7'2" heavy, so it's a 7.2 HFB, which is heavy, fast tip bait caster. And the reason why that 7.2 is the deal, I'm using it on a jig. Man, it's a jig rod. It's 7'2" heavy. You think about it, you can flip kind of tight quarters with this. I wouldn't say punch heavyweight, big mats, big grass. That's not what this rod is designed for. But for castability, whether I'm casting up shallow, fishing around docks, this rod gets it done. That 7.1, they have a great rod in the Tatula Elite series that's a 6'9" heavy, which is a tight quarter skipping rod. They have a 7.1, and then they have a 7.3 heavy, which is like a casting, I would say Carolina rig, casting a football jig out on a ledge, something that's heavy, stiff, can crack them. But this thing's a little bit on the shorter side. It's an inch shorter, and I'm a big old tall fella. And it's so light, it's so sensitive. I mean, it's just one of those rods. It's a little bit shorter, and I don't believe, like, I don't subscribe to the whole idea that, oh, a shorter rod gives you better casting accuracy. No, I think time on the water gives you better casting accuracy. But I like this 7'2" rod because I feel like I still have enough length if I do need a rod that can get out there and cast far, but I also have a rod that's almost 7'1" that gives me that short, compact castability. It's really the meat in the middle, best of both worlds. So this is the 7'2", heavy, fast action. I've got it on an 8:5-to-1 gear ratio. And once again, when I'm thinking jig fishing, I'm thinking I'm throwing it into heavy cover, I'm getting a hit, I'm setting that hook, and I'm trying to pick up a lot of line fast and move a lot of that line quick. And that rod, I have 18-pound fluorocarbon on, and I feel like literally I can handle just about anything. I will say, when I get down to Texas on some of those really true big bass factories, I'll probably end up going up to like a 20 to even 22-pound Samurai fluorocarbon, because I'm going to be handling some really big fish. But I'm currently in Central Arkansas, flipping a lot of cypress trees, grass lines, lily pads. I feel like 18-pound is going to get the job done. But that's the 7'2" heavy, and man, that is the setup for a jig. If you're looking at the Zillions, or maybe you're like, hey, you know, your wife doesn't know what to get you for Christmas or a birthday, man, this rod setup is bad to the bone. I've cracked some really nice fish on it, and just, it's light, it's sensitive. I can fish it all day. I'm in and around a lot of cover, so I'm handling the rod a lot. There's a lot of wrist motion. I want a nice light rod reel setup. This rod is a beast. So that is the 7'2" heavy, 8:5-to-1 gear ratio Zillion. That mamma jamma, bad to the bone. So I have two of these style rods. They are 7'3" medium heavy fast tips. I have one in the Zillion, one in the Elite, but I have this is my fluke setup. So this is a 7:1-to-1 gear ratio Zillion reel. Same deal, the air brake system is the deal. And if you've been following the channel for maybe, I don't know, a couple months, you've been seeing me fish a fluke, and it's a weighted fluke. I put a little bit of weight on that deal, but you have been seeing me fish a fluke a ton. I'm originally from Herring Lakes, and dude, that reel with the length of that rod, and I'm using 16-pound fluorocarbon, or even maybe 14-pound fluorocarbon, but I'm not kidding. Wind coming in 10 miles per hour, 15 miles per hour, I'm able to throw that fluke with that reel, no backlash, no anything. I can throw that fluke out 100 feet. And that is a powerful thing to do, especially in utilization with your forward-facing sonar. You know, highland reservoirs, you're constantly trying to present the bait out there super far, and you know, you need a reel that won't backlash against the wind. And when you're throwing something like a fluke that is just a light bait, and obviously I'm adding some lead wire to it to get it out there, but it can be obnoxiously tough to get it out there far, but I don't have a problem. But I've got two of these setups. This is the 7'3" medium heavy, 7'3" medium heavy with a 7:1-to-1 gear ratio. This one I've got rigged up with a scrounger. I've been on a great bite with a ChatterBait, and then I'm kind of even thinking about a little subtler of a bait that has that same vibration. So I've got a Rapala Crush City Mayor on that, but that's the deal. Half-ounce head on the scrounger. That's a Fish Pulse or Pulse Fish lures. Freaking awesome. But anyways, that's basically the same exact rod and reel setup, except this one is a Tatula Elite rod, which is absolutely freaking awesome. I love these rods too. And then this one is a Zillion rod. And I can actually tell the difference in weight. That Zillion rod weighs a little bit less. And once again, when you're thinking of 7.3 medium heavy, this is a versatile rod. I can swim a jig with this rod. I could honestly, I feel like I could flip with this rod. I throw a spinnerbait with this rod. I could deep crank with it. It's kind of your all-purpose rod that you can take and cast a long ways. It does everything you need it to do. I can take this rod and put a top water on it. I can put a swim bait on it. I can do so many things with that setup. But the 7:1 gear ratio too, they make a 7:1 and an 8:5 That 7:1, guys are always getting caught up on gear ratio. I'm like, KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. I feel like I can get away with a 7:1 with just about everything from slow rolling to something fast, whatever. But anyways, that is a super versatile rod. If you're looking for a nice premium rod that's light, feels good, it's sensitive, it checks all your boxes, that rod is the deal, man. It can do everything. And like I said, I've got 2 different models of that 7'3" medium heavy fast tip, but that is the deal. Once again, both of them with the Zillion reel. So the next 2 rods, if you know me, you know that I never really got to do this technique as much as I would have liked to, but it's one of my favorite techniques, and that is a ChatterBait. And there are 2 rods in this lineup that are, bar none, the best 2 rods I have ever felt. I'm not making that up. The best 2 rods I have ever felt with a ChatterBait. And the first one is, I just used it the other day, is the 6'10" medium heavy regular bend. So it's a parabolic rod. Let me see if I can undo this a little bit. It's soft, it's graphite. The thing I don't like about a lot of ChatterBait rods, or regular bend rods, they're glass rods, so they're really heavy in the hand. This is a graphite rod, and dude, it's so soft. I mean, I don't know if you can tell, man. That thing has such a beautiful bend. And with the ChatterBait, I don't know why, but sometimes they have the tendency to not get it good. They throw it, I think a lot of times as you're fighting that fish, that blade is working in their mouth and can just loosen up. So you really want them to get that bait. You want them to inhale that bait. So that 6'10" medium heavy regular bend, dude, I caught a nice bag the other day on a lake. First time ever on the lake. Caught a really nice bag on that rod. And I was precision casting, so that 6'10", little shorter rod, I was getting in there and really, I mean, just picking apart shallow cypress with a little bit of grass mixed in. And dude, that rod handled flawlessly. I caught a 415 and a few 4s, and then a bunch of those, you know, 1.5 to 2 pounders. I didn't lose a fish all day on that setup. When I was getting the ChatterBait out of their mouth, it was down in their crushers. That means that rod, they were hitting it. That rod wasn't too fast to pull that ChatterBait out of their mouth. They were hitting it, inhaling it, swimming with it, and I could just lean on them and get it. So that is the 6'10" medium heavy R. The regular bend, kind of a slow tapering bend. So the next one that I am so stoked for, this is a 7'3" heavy regular. So now you might be asking, okay, so you have the 6'10", why the 6'10" over the 7'3"? Like, what are the big differences? The 7'3" to me is obviously I'm gonna be able to cast further, but that heavy action, I'm gonna be able to snap it through grass. So when I'm out on a grass flat, maybe I'm in, you know, it's pre-spawn, maybe it's summertime, maybe, well, I don't even care time of the year, you're able to get a lot of cast distance and work that bait with that little bit more, I would say, aggressive action when you're deflecting it through grass, letting it get caught up in grass. And once again, I still think you need a regular bend rod, unless, I think you can get away with a ChatterBait throwing it on a 7'3" medium heavy fast, but you need to use monofilament line. You need something that just gives a little bit and isn't too fast to pull the bait out. Because once again, they just eat a ChatterBait weirder than even a swim jig. But that rod to me, that's a 7'3" heavy regular bend, and that rod to me is a rod that I can throw out a super long ways. I can be really efficient in grass. And once again, whether I'm using Humminbird 360, whether I'm using, you know, forward facing and I'm picking off isolated clumps, points in the grass, whatever it is, I can stay super far out off of that and take and really use this rod and reel, just totally efficient and work it. But I mean, dude, you know, this is a 7'3" heavy regular bend. I can throw a small glide bait on this rod and have absolutely no problem doing that. I can throw a hair jig. I know I have the tendency with a fast rod tip to snap a hair jig when they eat it. I have a tendency to snap a hair jig away from fish. So a softer rod tip is going to be able to get those fish to inhale that, help them eat it a little more, and help my landing percentage. I will say this, the big mistake I've made over the years is using too fast of a rod. And you know, I've always, you know, been like, oh, I'm gonna just manhandle these fish. And honestly, I've lost a lot of fish over the years, and big fish, to that whole idea. But I think the deal is, if you can let those fish get it a little better and really let the rod do the work, and less me doing the handling and the teeth gritting and working it, like, hey, the rod is made to fight these fish. Let a little bit slower rod take control of those fish, wear them down, get them next to the boat, get them in the boat. So that is the deal there. That is the 7'3" heavy regular bend. It's a slower tip, longer cast, more aggressive with the heavy action, snapping it through grass, covering water. You know, I'm freaking in love with this rod. By the way, I think you could do a lot with this rod. I think you could do a heavy trap. I think you could do a heavy trap with this rod. I think you could get away with even doing some deeper cranking. I know it's not the length that most people want to, but it's got that regular bend. It's a 7'3". I've got 18 pound on it. I can get a little funky with them, and I have utmost confidence that rod is going to hold up. That is the Zillion rod. Once again, 7:1 gear ratio. All the rods right now that I've talked about, I'm just like in love with. The next rod is a 6'6", extra fast, and that is the jerkbait rod. And once again, dude, I like throwing top water. I like throwing a jerkbait, and you can tell, but based on the bend right there, man, it's got a super quick tip, but man, it loads into that rod real nice, into the backbone of that rod. And when I'm throwing a jerkbait, you have to have those short, snappy, quick snaps of that rod tip, and you want something with that super quick tip, and that's gonna work that bait, snapping it back and forth. So, you know, I'm snapping that rod tip back and forth, but when I get hooked up with a big fish, that rod tip, that whole rod is gonna load into the backbone. So that rod's super light, man. When a lot of times when I'm jerk baiting, it's like I'm all in on the technique. I'm doing it all day. So when I'm doing that, I need a rod that's light. I need a rod that's sensitive. I need a rod that can just do it all day. That is a super light setup. I have that on an 8.5-1. And once again, when I think about jerkbait fishing, whether it's springtime, whether it's summertime, whatever you're doing with it, I've got to pick up a lot of line fast. So I want a rod with a fast gear ratio, that when I snap that, I'm moving that bait in the water column, but I'm able to pick up line fast, because when those fish eat it, especially in the areas where I've been fishing, there's a lot of standing timber, there's a lot of areas these fish will eat and go into those places. I want to pick up line fast. I want to move those fish out of where they are and bring them to me. So that's an 8.5-1 gear ratio. I can also, in the summertime, instead of throwing a jerkbait, I can put braid on this and use that as an unbelievable topwater rod. If you're a herring spawn guy, herring spawn fisherman like I am, you know, you need to be able to have a topwater rod that's, you know, your precision casting ambush, very tight ambush spots where those fish are setting up eating herring. So that's the deal. That is the 6'6", 6'6" Zillion baitcaster, medium action, extra fast tip. That dude is a beast. I've already loved it. I've caught a few fish on it. I've loved it. So anyways, let's go check out a couple more. All right, so the next rod is a 7'9" heavy regular bend. And this is I think it's rated up to 4 ounces. Yeah, and for me, this is a glide bait rod through and through. I've got it on a Tatula 150, which is a heavy duty swim bait reel. I've currently got the 6" 6.5 draw on it. But this rod right here, I think about swim baiting. I'm being honest with you guys, I'm not a huge fan of an 8-foot rod. It's just a lot of rod. And I'm a big fan of that kind of 7'6" to 7'9" regular, you know, that slow parabolic bend, keeping it true to what I've been saying about that parabolic bend. And this rod is awesome. It's a swim bait rod. I throw everything. I've got a clutch darter over there. I've got a bull shad 6". I've got a bull shad 7", the trick shad. I feel confident that I can throw the clutch boss on it. the 9-inch draw, kind of, those are the most of the swim baits I've been utilizing lately. But you know, that deal right there, and I can throw my DRT Clash 9s on it because it has that regular bend, that kind of slower parabolic bend, which helps those fish. Because dude, if you've been glide baiting with any kind of regularity over the last, I don't know, couple of years, or maybe you're new to it, you will realize how many fish eat that lure and you pull that bait away from them. So for me, a slower rod just makes sense for those fish to eat it, get it really good, and make sure they're pinned. And then when they go to head waller and head shaking, that big parabolic bend is going to be able to absorb those head shakes, keep them pinned, and that is the deal. So that is the 7'9" heavy regular bend, up to 4 ounces, and pretty versatile rod. I mean, it bends all the way down into here. I feel like I can do a lot with this rod. I'm utilizing as a glide bait rod. I think I could throw a big Magnum flutter spoon on it. Honestly, I think I could even do a little bit of flipping with it when I'm like in something that I can let them eat it, snap it, and I can just get all that pressure of that rod, really get them out of there. But that is a beast of a rod. All right, the next 4 rods are all spinning rods, and I have 2 of each model. So the first one is a 6'10" medium light, and I've got a 3000 size Tatula Elite on it. But I've been using this. You can tell I got a hair jig rigged up right now. I was just literally fishing for trout in a river, and man, that's a 1/8 ounce, and I was jacking 3.5 to 4 pound trout, just mashing them on that little hair jig. That deal right there is bad to the bone. I did not miss a fish all day. It's got that super soft tip. I'm using this rod with a Demiki rig. I'm using this rod to drop shot. I'm using this rod to Ned rig, just kind of across the board. The thing is unbelievable. It's a fast action. So it's a medium light, fast action. So I've got a lot of tip. It's soft, but then it gets into that backbone. And I've got it on a 6 pound, I think this is a 6 pound leader. I've got one of them with an 8 pound leader, and then 10 pound braid, the Daiwa Grand 8. But dude, that freaking setup there, so nice. Just finesse fishing, period. It's so light, so sensitive. Oh, it's awesome, awesome, awesome. You know, if you're targeting smallmouth, if you're targeting spotted bass offshore, I've caught some really big spots with that deal, but that rod is bad to the bone. And I've got 2 of those 6'10" medium lights right there with the 3000 size reel. That thing is sweet. And then my next one is a 6'8" medium, and it's a regular bend. So same deal. I've you know, this is really cool. I didn't even plan to do this, but it's a regular bend, so it's more parabolic. And I've got a treble hook bait on it. I've got a Spro E-Pop 80, and then right here I've got a Demiki rig. I've got a jig head minnow, and it can do it both. I can take and throw a jig head minnow 3/16 ounce, but I can throw that bait right there on a Demiki rig with this. It's a medium action. It's not a medium light, so it's a little bit stiffer, but it's parabolic. So it's real sensitive. I can get a hook in them, and then I can let the rod once again do the work of fighting the fish. But that's a single hook bait. Haven't lost a fish with it. It's unbelievable. And then that's a treble hook bait. Once again, whenever you're throwing treble hook baits, you want something that's parabolic, something that'll keep them pinned when they go to head shaking. And that rod is super versatile. I mean, literally right there, I've got a jig head minnow, which is a single hook bait. I've got a treble hook bait with the Spro E-Pop. You know, it just gets the job done. So, you know, those are my go-to rods. Those are what I'm using across the board. And yeah, I mean, I really believe I'm using the best rods in the game, best reels in the game. The Zillions are so nice. And here's the deal, you might be a budget guy, and I get it. You know, like for a long time, I was a budget guide, because just guiding, your crap gets absolutely destroyed by customers. The wear and tear of just guiding, period, man, stuff just breaks. But now I'm using a lot of premium stuff, and I'm like, holy cow, guys. It is, in fact, night and day difference from those $150 combos to, you know, you're talking about combos here. You're talking about a $300 rod, a $200 reel, you know, so you're talking about a $500 price point, but man, this thing just gets the job done. It's a superior product. They have unbelievable warranties, and I promise, you fish them enough, you will be able to tell the difference. So anyways, everything that we talked about in today's video will be down in the description, all the links, everything. You can follow those links, and get everything I'm talking about today. I'll also throw in some other things that are maybe a little more cost efficient if you're a budget angler, but still on the premium side of the Daiwa product line. But anyways, guys, I appreciate you a ton. I hope this video was informative. I hope it was educational. I hope you learned a lot. And if you did, give it a thumbs up. Would love to hear your comments down below. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks.